And we are live here. You're watching Virtual JUG. My name is Oleg, and I'm one of the hosts here on the Virtual JUG team. Virtual JUG is obviously a virtual Java user group, the only online, not only, but one of the most prestigious Java user group you can join online. So if you don't have the privilege of having a local JUG near you that you can join the virtual one and get the best content about the software engineering, about Java, about the software development, everything be brought to you online so you can join our meetings without leaving the comfort of your own home. Today, we have an exceptional speaker, and it is Brian. Brian, how are you doing?
Hey, Oleg. Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, the weather is better here than last week. Last week it was like insanely hot, and now I'm just able to do the session. So, how are you doing?
Right, perfect. I'm great. Estonia is back to normal, plus 14 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit miserable. I liked last week, but I appreciate that it's not for everyone. And as a worldwide phenomenon, last week was kind of hard on humanity. So let's get back to the technical content. Let me share the screen and say a couple of words about the current session. I think this one should be what I'm sharing. You can see the slides now, right?
Yep.
Right. So Virtual JUG, today's session is the life hack. You are infiltrate finding security vulnerabilities before they find you. It's going to be a very technical and very demo-driven session. And our speaker is Brian Vermeer, and you can find him on the internet by Twitter, mostly at Brian Verm. Brian is working for Snyk, and I'm sure he has a slide to introduce him. But he's an exceptional software engineer, and I've known him for a long time. And he has been on the Virtual JUG before, presenting a session about the patterns and functional programming, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you're correct.
Maybe not. So if you haven't seen that, check that out in the archive. But before we start the session, before I give the stage to Brian, there are a couple of very important announcements. Please join the Virtual JUG Slack channel. You can find the link on the pages if you Google it, and join the live session channel. This is where we gather the questions and the discussion about the session. You can ask your questions, and then I will find the opportune moment and forward them to Brian. Please share the group and this particular session. It's important. We are a community. We would love to grow the community. So if you know somebody who is not a member of Virtual JUG yet, and you think they could benefit from being here, please share this group with them. And if you have any feedback, tweet at us at Virtual JUG or personally to me at Shalaev, and I'll be happy to address your concerns. We have a backlog of issues, and we are going to be definitely putting all your complaints to the backlog. I'm kidding. We'll address them immediately. If you watch this video on YouTube and you don't think the quality of the video is up to your expectations, please use the cog icon on the usual YouTube in the YouTube interface to raise the quality. It should go at least to 720. So it should be decent even for the screenshots with text. And one more very important announcement. Going back to, do you recognize this person? Brian?
No, I have no clue who that is.
This is Brian Vermeer. This is one and only Brian Vermeer working for Snyk, and he's very important for today's session. First, because, well, this is you. Brian is a speaker now, but also a very special announcement. For the long time, we've been doing the Virtual JUG with a very fixed team, and just recently we included Brian to the Virtual JUG admin team. So Brian, welcome to the team, welcome to the family. And now what it means for you is that you are now a Virtual JUG leader, and what it means for the community and the people watching. If you have any questions about the Virtual JUG, or if you have any suggestions, or if you would like to have a session, or anything related to Virtual JUG, besides just going to the existing team members, you can also ping Brian, and he will be hopefully happy to help you. So Brian, it's a pleasure to invite you and to have you on the team, and I'm very happy that I'm here to announce this. So welcome.
Thanks, man.
Right. So with all that out of the question, I'm gonna stop presenting, and I'm gonna stop presenting, and I'm gonna give the screen back to you, Brian. And
all right,
let's hear the session life hack: finding security vulnerabilities before they find you.
Cool. Let me share my screen first. Then we will see a pretty guy, handsome guy. And now if everything is okay, you will see my slides, right?
Yeah. We see your slides. Cool. All good. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Oleg. So first of all, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be part of the Virtual JUG. But let's go to the content we're here for. Some of you had this session, or had to expect Simon Maple for doing this session, but I had to fill in for him because of personal reasons. So, well, it's me you have to deal with, but I will have some nice things for you. First of all, we're gonna talk about DevSecOps, because although it is a nice written word, I hate it. I personally hate it because the word is strange to me. I mean, the word DevOps sounded quite cool, like an abbreviation for developers and operations. And now, because security is so important, we put it in the middle or something like that. Well, I hate the word because it sounds like let's make something cool even more cooler. And, you know, it's the same way as my granddad is trying to fit in with the younger kids and trying to talk some kind of urban slang with it. I don't like the word. Although I don't like the word, I do think that DevSecOps, the meaning of DevSecOps is an important thing, because security is something that needs to be inside your team, just like developers need to be part of operations, and operations need to be somewhat part of the development team, or it has to be at least in one team. I think security is not on the mind of the developer, and security has to be as well. But before we get into that, I do have a slide that I present myself. That is me in a nice pepperoni shirt. Well, I work for Snyk. It's a development company. It's a security company that focuses on development tooling. So we create tooling that helps developers be more secure, basically. I contribute to the Utrecht JUG. That's that little juke with the tower over there. I'm co-lead of TheSecureDeveloper, which is a community similar to the VJUG, but specialized on AppSec. And well, I just got introduced as one of the VJUG members, which is awesome. If you want to connect with me, please find me on Twitter. And well, let's continue, because the DevSecOps thing is nice. But first of all, we're trying to solve a problem, right? And what is that problem? Well, if I look at my own career, like a few years ago, or say maybe 10 years ago, I deployed maybe 2 times a year, maybe 3 times, depends on which organization you are. But I worked for government agencies and banks, and they were not that greedy to deploy their software multiple times a day. But that changed. I mean, now we need to speed up these things because we want to get ahead of our competition. We want to get bigger, better, stronger instantly. The problem in that case is that we do not always think about security, because we are feature driven, right? We want to get that new shiny thing out and be in front of the competition. And that means that there is a lack of security focus throughout our whole app life cycle. I mean, security is, although we're trying to do DevOps, security is still a siloed thing for most companies. At the end of the stage, there is this big security component or big security team that works for multiple of the DevOps teams, and they will look into your stuff. They want to do a certain amount of things. They want to make sure that it's safe, and then they say, no, you cannot go to production. And it would be nice to tackle all these problems earlier, in an earlier stage, to make sure that security is not only a gatekeeper. Next to that, the security teams might want to have an audit or a penetration test that might take weeks or days. And I would love to maybe deploy 3 times a day. How is that consistent if we do not focus on security in the beginning? So that might be a problem, because in the end, we want to make sure that our customer data is not compromised, right? We do not want. We have this hack in the U.S. with one of the large banks that is hacked now, like today or yesterday or something, and that's a big problem. If our customer data is compromised, it's not a good thing for the company you work for, and it's not a good thing for you as a developer to have that has to maintain that software, right? But these ghost stories, of course, but how bad is it? I mean, how bad is it really? Well, we had this thing like today or yesterday, but a few years ago, like say it's a year ago, 2 years ago, we had Equifax. And Equifax, I wonder how many people heard of Equifax like say 2 years ago, or well, say 2017 this happened, say 2015. I think people outside of the US didn't know about Equifax. After this incident, well, a lot of people know about Equifax. We can say that is great marketing or good marketing because people know the name of your company, but I doubt that the people that were compromised were thinking the same way. And I mean, if we look at it, Equifax was a crediting company that used an outdated struts library. And what they simply did was they used struts library, and a vulnerability was disclosed in that library, but they had no clue. And long story short, they didn't upgrade fast enough. So people could break in. And people were in that system for months, literally snooping around. It wasn't just a simple hack like you see on television on these CSI kind of TV shows. They were in for months and secretly and easily snooping around and see what kind of data they found. At the end, they compromised 143 million records, and well, that's a lot, right? Let me first go to that thing. I will go over here, and you see my screen now, and I have a same application over here, which is an application that runs on Heroku, and let me sign up on this one. Let's see if it works. Let me say my name, Brian, and at snyk.io. I will use a very secure password called 123456 because, well, we're in a security company and it's always important to do something like that. So we have a very simple to-do list over here. It's nothing much, but if we look at this to-do thing and we see the about page, it's a silly one, but it tells me what kind of framework to use. Nobody in his right mind would do that, but you will see we are using a vulnerable struts library. But let me get to that app and create a to-do. What normally is the meaning of it, like say something like take wife out to dinner, right? And then we'll put it somewhere in 9070 and give it a high priority. This is the meaning of this application, but it uses a struts library. And well, every right hacker would go to the terminal. So let's go from this terminal. And I will show you what the problem is, because Apache Struts is an MVC framework for, well, they say elegant modern Java web applications, right? What we can do is we can create post requests. And the struts problem was that we can create post requests with a certain header. Let me show you that header. So if I show you the header, it's something like this. Let me clean that for you and show you that again. I will insert a content type, and I don't know if anybody of you recognizes the content type. It's bogus. Well, it's a content type that is not real, and that's the whole problem of it. Because the problem in struts is that you could insert a content type, and if the content type was not valid, it goes into some sort of exception flow. Well, in this exception flow, we could utilize the OGNL language, which is the Object Graph Navigation language that Struts supports. And what we can do with this OGNL is we can create expressions. We can do getting and setting of properties, but we can also make new instances of objects. And that's what we do here, because we take this OGNL weird kind of header, put this as a parameter in the content type, and then it will be maliciously, it will be executed. So what we do over here is we give this as a parameter, and what it does, it uses the process builder to execute a bash command. So with this execution, we go into an exception flow, which was designed to give you better exceptions. But because OGNL could be executed, we could do arbitrary. We could run arbitrary code. So let me do this, because this one is running on the cloud, right? It's running on Heroku, as you can see. You can try it out. It's running there. And what I'm doing over here is, let me clear my screen again. And show you the struts exploit. If I take this, and I will execute that one over here. What I do is I take that header and I put the environment command over here, but I will not do it on my local machine. No, I will actually do it on this Heroku app, just to show you that it is real and it's not a staged thing. Of course, it's staged because it's a vulnerable application, but I do it on my Heroku app. And what I do is I simply ask the environment commands and the environment variables. By executing this, you will see that I am on server Cowboy, whatever that may be, on this Heroku instance. And for instance, what I can see over here is that my Java home is in /app/.jdk. And this is just reading stuff, but it's the beginning of something more. I can now investigate, but I can do anything, because now I just executed the environment command, but I can also execute any command I want. And that's basically what this vulnerability was about. So you see, by something like this, you do not notice it on the outside, but by simply having the header, as we see over here, published to the internet, everybody can use that and can try and shoot at your application to see if you have this vulnerability and if you are vulnerable. So getting back to this, to my slideshow, basically, if you look at your application and you see that your application is kind of like this, this big yellow ball, and how much of this application that you put into production is your code? Think about it. Probably it's something like this, right? It's a small number of lines of code that you produce, and you use a lot of frameworks and a lot of libraries that are there for you just to grab and to use, because we do not want to care about boilerplate. We do care about new business logic. And that's a good thing, because, well, we cannot do all the things at the same time, right? And who wants to do yet another integration with a database or yet another REST endpoint, which is all of the same? We want to focus on what's important. But having an example like this, say we have a serverless example of 19 lines of code. As you can see, it has 2 dependencies, right? 2 direct dependencies. But dependencies have dependencies, having more dependencies. In total, because AWS SDK probably is a big one, it comes onto 19 dependencies, which is still a fair amount. But just take a number in your head how many lines of code this will be.
I think it's gonna be 130,000 lines of code.
130.
Yeah,
I do not want to disappoint you, but it's more.
It's almost so close.
You were so close, but it's almost 200,000 lines of code. So you see that the 19 lines small thing I created ends up with a whole bunch of lines that go into production, and half of it, or well, most of it, you don't know what it is, right? So I will give you another example. I will not let you guess anymore, but it's like it is a Spring Serverless example, and it's 222 lines of code. For a Java application, it's pretty neat, right? It has 5 direct dependencies. It has 54 total dependencies, but the stunning amount of almost 500,000 lines of code that you put into production. So the code may not be touched, but that doesn't mean it cannot, and it will not be touched. It may be touched because, well, some frameworks do a lot of magic, like auto wiring, making sure things are there even though you didn't ask for it. This stuff is there in production, and you might not know of it, and you might not know that it's vulnerable or not. Although you are the greatest programmer on earth, and you have all sorts of things in place, like pair programming or even reviewing or whatever, it's not, most of the time, it's not your code. Because open source usage has exploded. And I do not want to say that we do not need to use open source. We do need to use open source. Open source is the best thing ever, I guess. But it's still created by humans, right? By you, me, and there are a lot of people that contribute to open source, and I hope you do as well. But it doesn't mean that open source by default is secure, nor is it insecure. It is still some software that, well, might have some bugs or might have some insecurities, right? But you saw that big yellow ball, right? What do you think that attackers will do? They will target these open source things because people use a lot of these things. And if, for instance, there is this Apache struts library, and say 1 million people are using this library, and there is a vulnerability in it, I have a potential of 1 million applications that are vulnerable. Same holds for things like Spring Boot, and name all of the other big projects that are open source and they're out for to grab, right? If we look at the ecosystems over the last couple of years, you see that the biggest growth was in NPM. It grows enormously. They have a package. Well, I think they have multiple packages for everything you want to do. If you want to do something, NPM will probably supply you with a dozen of packages. But still, if we're looking at Maven Central, for instance, you see that the growth over the last year is quite substantial. It's over 100,000 of packages. And if we look at the new vulnerabilities that each year are there by ecosystem, sorry to say, but we are the clear winner. If we take Maven Central as our prime suspect, you see that there are still a lot of new vulnerabilities each year coming up, and this number is rising. And if we're looking at this number of known vulnerabilities that are out there now, and we're looking at these packages, most of the time, it is not the direct dependency. If you look at Maven Central and NPM, which are the biggest ecosystems at the moment, you see that just, well, 25% or less is the direct dependency that has the problem. It's most of the time the indirect dependency. So a package that your package is using. So it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 levels deep. And how do you know as a user that it's vulnerable? But maybe you are. And if we ask these open source maintainers how confident they are about their security system, about their security knowledge, well, ask yourself. I mean, 63% is like, yeah, kind of. And that's the question I want to ask everybody. Do you trust kind of enough to use it blindly? I do not say you do not need to use it, but most of the time people are using it blindly. And if we ask about responsibility in security, well, this was a multi-answer question. At least 81% of our people that we questioned this about, and these graphs are from the state of open source security, so it's not particularly Java bound, but there were a lot of people involved in this. And we see that most of the people, which were developers and open source maintainers, say that developers have some sort of responsibility if we look into security. But if we project that back on you as a programmer, how do you recall that? What do you do that? And how do you find out about vulnerabilities? 27% reacted with, well, I probably won't because I have no clue. And say, for instance, there is a vulnerability in a package in general. Open source maintainers want to do their best to fix it because, well, of course, we all want better and bigger and secure software, right? But it still takes about 17 days in general to get a patch up, to get a new fixed version in, which is still good. But once it's in production, it doesn't mean you're not vulnerable. It can be that your legacy app is there for years, right? and you didn't touch it. But that doesn't mean because at the point of deployment it wasn't vulnerable. It is still safe now. I mean, in generally, it takes over 2.5 years to do so, to find and disclose a vulnerability. And even for things like Docker. Docker is new, shiny, and well, not that new and shiny anymore, but it's still a kind of new technology, and we think it's quite safe. So we download the images from Docker Hub, and we just use them, right? Or we build on top of them. And if we look at the top 10 Docker images from known companies or from known ecosystems, for instance, like Mongo and MySQL, these are the official images. This thing was run in I think the last snippet was done in March, so the numbers might be a little different, but it gives you still the impact that if you just take an image from Docker, you might have vulnerabilities. I have to say most of the vulnerabilities are not, for instance, for Node.js. Node.js at that point didn't have vulnerabilities at itself, but the base image it was based on, and which was a Debian version, had a lot of open source, had a lot of operating system vulnerabilities. And if you just grab it and put it in production, you have them for free. And if we ask these people, how do you know about it? Do you scan these for OS vulnerabilities? Well, luckily, half of them do. The other half, not so much. And once it is deployed, how do you find out? Still, a lot of people do not find out because, well, I don't say they do not care, but they are not aware of it. And let's see what happens when you're not aware of it. Let's hack some more stuff, right? So I will go back to my terminal, and we'll first go into, let's go into a JavaScript kind of thing. Let me start this. Oh, let me start this one up. Let me see if it starts. All right. Cool. So I've got a new application over here. Localhost 3001. And well, let me just clean this one up. And it's still, because we like to do things, it's again a to-do app. And what this thing has is, besides it is a to-do app, we also have the About page over here. And I don't know what you think about this About page, but I love it. It is the best About page ever. Again, it is a to-do page, so buy flowers, I can answer that. But again, no hacker in his right mindset would just go into the browser. Let's go into the terminal. So for instance, say we want to do path traversal on this website we have. Let me, for instance, curl the About page. The About page was this. All right. So let me curl that one. And you will see that I have this About page. Normally, I would ask the audience what should you do if you want to do path traversal. Well, I think everybody knows, but normally what you do is something like this, right? .. .. and we try to see if we see something interesting. So by curling this, and we know that our browser is not interfering with it, we get something back. And about.html. Oh, it's my homepage. Damn. What we're trying to do here is we are trying to hack the ST package, because I know there is a vulnerability in this ST package in npm, but it's a real package, and it pattern matches on that .. and it sees that I want to do path traversal. Well, what I can do is first I can try to do something like this, whatever, but I can assure you this gives me the same result. However, the best friend of a hacker is encoding. So say we have this .. Normally, I will ask the audience, like, what do you think that .. is if you URL encoded? And you can now quickly look it up, but I will say it is %2e, %2e, and I will do it again. Or I just try it once, right? And you'll see here that I have all these files over here. And interesting enough, it also gives me the package.json, which is the manifesto for NPM. It's basically the same thing as your pom.xml, but for NPM things. And now I can see which packages you have. Wouldn't that be awesome just to dig around? And if I do this more, I can, let me just clear my screen, which is more easier. And if I just have this ... and I will do it more. And I will just copy it around and say something like this and go into your etc pass wd. And there's nothing important in here, but you can see that now I can just snoop around. And it's not a high vulnerable thing, but it's a beginning of something. And now I can snoop around and see what kind of version you have. Maybe if you left some property files here and there. And if I have that, I can go on with my investigation. So that's one thing, path reversal, by just implementing the wrong version of the ST package. Let's go into something else. Let's go and hack some other thing. We are going to hack the MS package, and we're going to do that with regular expressions. And I know everybody loves regular expressions. And if I ask that, I also asked, how do you like it to debug other people's regular expressions? Well, most people are not that fond of that. But say we have a regular expression like something like this. Say your regular expression is pretty silly, right? But say this is your regular expression and you want to match it against this. This perfectly works and it's fast, but you do not know how it works, because does it use the plus, or does it use the star, or does it use the plus till halfway and then the star, or we have no clue. What we do know, however, if your regular expression doesn't fit, it goes into some sort of backtracking mode, and it tries basically all the possibilities against your string. And if your regular expression is long enough or is intense enough, then you might end up with a problem. We call that a regular expression denial service, because one thing that is different from the JavaScript ecosystem with the Java ecosystem is it only has one thread. So if I can occupy this thread, wouldn't that be great? If I worked for Amazon and I want to make sure that my competitor is not there on Black Friday, right? Let's try this one out. I go back into my demo over here, and let me do something like this. Oh, I think I forgot something. I think I forgot to install exploits. Hey, well, need to be clear, right? Cool. Say I want to do this, and I will show you what I do. I'm using HTTPI to fill in that form that I just showed you, and I want to fill it in with call mom in 20 minutes. And I will do it on my local host 3001. If I do it, I will get a return, which is cool. And if I refresh this one, you will see that I will call mom in 20 minutes. Nothing wrong with that, but it does something with that 20 minutes, right? Let me show you another trick. Let me get my second version up, and say I'm going to do this. Instead of just give it a fixed number, I will do something like I create a lot of fives, say 60,000 fives, and I plot it to minutes and see what it does. So it's 5 minutes, right? And as you can see, it's pretty fast. It has a lot of minutes, and it will come back to me in my application as infinity days. Well, I think my milk is sour by then, but okay, it works. And it's fast because the regular expression holds. But if I can make sure that this regular expression doesn't hold, say, for instance, I want to buy milk in not minutes, which can be evaluate it to something, but say minutes, because, well, I cannot spell that well. This might work. And what I do over here, I see that I'm going into backtrack mode because I do not have any response. I try to do something over here, enter, 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 and you see it hangs until every single possibility of this regular expression is done, and then bam, everything goes back. And if I just add one new zero or one extra zero to this 60,000 and make it well, maybe 80,000 or 90,000, or well, add a few zeros to it, we will be waiting here for the rest of the month. So that's an important one. A regular expression denial service, as we call it. And if you work in the cloud, then another instance might pop up. And if you do that again, if you script this kind of funny things, and you do this over and over again, it is not a denial of service, but I think a denial of your pocket money. So basically, you will end up with a large bill, and it's a great way to get your competition out of the running. I think that is enough for JavaScript, right? Because, well, making fun of JavaScript never gets old, but we're having the virtual JUG. It's a Java user group, right? So let's get into something different. Let's get into a Spring application. And I have a Spring application over here. Let me just remove that one. And what I have over here is simply a very small Spring Boot application. I will increase the font so you can read it better. This Spring Boot application is nothing more than some sort of grocery list. It will, at startup, it will run with beans for 50 cents, milk for $1.09 or £1.09. Well, I think now that the British have a new prime minister, it probably is less than that, or even, or the prices go up for them. I don't know. Anyway, it's a grocery list, right? And what I have here is a simple repository and basically the items itself. And the items itself is just a name and a cost and an ID with some functions on it. Nothing more, nothing less. But the fun part is this repository. And we know that for all those Spring Boot users, and we're using Spring Data over here. And by extending this CRUD repo, we have CRUD functionality by default. By just giving this interface the right name with the right, or create the right interface, it creates the CRUD repository for me, which is pretty neat because I can now find by cost, find by name, find all, and I can do something like list item, well, whatever. I can do find by name and cost, whatever you want. So instantly I have a CRUD repository without doing all sorts of extra stuff, and that's cool. But the important part is we have this repository REST resource, which transforms my CRUD repo not in just CRUD functionality, but gives me a REST opportunity, gives me a REST service. And that is awesome. So now instantly I have a REST service. So let's run this one. And let's see what happens. Always have to pray to the demo gods, because the last time I started this one, it was a couple of weeks ago. And I think it works. So let's go over here and go to, I think it was localhost 8080. And we have our hell browser, which is just another dependency, which gives me this nice views, just to show you. Now what I can do here is I can do something like /items, and it will show me all the items I have here, like the beer, the milk, /items /1 gives me the beans. And I can also do the customized find by whatever. But the point is, this is all working out of the box, in which this is great. But we can also insert custom request headers. And there is a problem with it. And we call this vulnerability, we call it Spring Break. As my boss, or well, my boss, it's my manager, Simon Maple would say, don't try to Google Spring Break, at least not the American version. I did. And it's nothing, it has nothing to do with the vulnerability that we're calling here. But what is that spring break kind of thing? Let me go in here. We're here let me show you. It's a bit of the same as the Apache struts kind of thing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to insert a custom header. Again, a custom JSON header. So if I cat this JSON header for you, and I will show it to you, it doesn't make any sense, right? Let me do it again and make sure it's a bit bigger. What we can do here is same as the Apache struts thing I just showed you. We can use the Spring expression language in some kind of way. And we do that by giving it a weird kind of JSON formatted header with it. And again, what I do here is I call the Java runtime and I execute it with a command. And what I do, I wire it back to an ID. I wire the output stream back and show it on my screen. So if I just go to the, say I want to get the environment variables, and I go to it is simply something like this. It's the same header, but what I do over here, instead of the command, I will call env. And basically I can call anything again. And by doing this, and it runs on my local machine, you will see that I use SDK-man. This is my username. Luckily, there are no passwords in it. There's my temp there, etc., etc. I hope nobody stores passwords in his environment variables anymore these days. Because if you do, and these kind of things are there, you're screwed. And basically what I tried to say here is that although you might not need or use these custom headers, they are there and they are available to you. And if you look closely at this thing again, I'm just using this endpoint. This endpoint is normally just for getting my beans out of my grocery list, right? But by using this endpoint with a custom header, which is there because I'm just implementing or using this REST repo kind of thingy from Spring, and I have this annotation on, immediately I have a vulnerability that I was not aware of and I probably didn't test. So for free. Well, let me go to my, well, I think my last demo. Let's go back to that struts kind of thing. So let me go back to that Java, go to the home page, and I'm still logged in. Cool. One of the things you saw over here in the beginning, I did this, was that I, with these Apache struts thing, I got the environment variables, and I know where the, maybe I have it here. Yeah, you see that I know where the Java home is, right? Wouldn't it be fun to just mess with the Heroku Java, well, Heroku JDK? It's fun to do it on your local machine, but let's do it with do it on the internet. First, let me explain something. Say I want to create a to-do, and I say eat, and I want to use the pi symbol. What is the pi symbol? Pi symbol. Ah, cool. I can use the pi symbol. I go back and I use the pi symbol. I will give it a date again, doesn't matter. And I will give it a high priority. I want to eat pie because I'm hungry. It's almost 7 o'clock over here. And what you see over here is that pie is transferred into its ASCII code, right? And what it uses under the hood, I know that because we programmed it, that it used the generic function native to ASCII. And a native to ASCII function is something that is there in the JDK. And we want to exploit that. We want to do something funny with that. So what we're trying to do is we're going to try to upload something. We're going to try to upload a zip file. And we call this a zip slip vulnerability. And let me show you what this zip kind of thing is. If I have a zip file over here, you see that I have the zip slip.zip. And let me show you what the info on this zip vulnerability. Zip slip.zip. As you can see, it holds two files. a good .text, and a native to ASCII file with a weird path, which I basically do path reversal on. By point slash dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash, and I go into that app JDK I know, and I know it's in the bin folder, and I try to override this. You would say that people would take care of that, but depends on what kind of library you use. In Java, there is no such thing as a standard library for unzipping, or there is no native library, native function for that. There are some building blocks to do that. So there are a few of these generic libraries that can do that for you. And as you know, this native to ASCII kind of thing, let me unzip this one, and you show it. Then I'll show you what it does. So unzip zip/zip, and luckily my Mac makes sure that it skips this one. But we can go into these app JDK bin. Oh, let me VI that. Let me just cap that. App JDK bin native to ASCII. And I just override, I have this function, and I just echoed muaha gotcha. Nothing more. It's none of importance, but let me override this one on this Heroku app I have here. So by going here and choosing the file, the zip demo zip, I open this one. I have it over here. I am going to upload it. And what you see is that we have our good text in our public folder where we expect that the good text will be. That can mean two things. Or it skipped the path reversal thingy, or it executed it, right? And that means that because native to ASCII is called on every single to-do I'm doing, because it needs to see if there is a symbol in it. Let's try this out. So say hello VJUG, and I put it on the 2nd of February 1997. And what you see is muhaha gotcha. So I overrode something on the JDK in my Heroku app because the zip file or the zip library I have didn't look good enough in how my zip was constructed. I just basically got this part of the path and the file name and just concatenated together. And this is just by using the wrong version of the wrong library again. So going back to my slides, we're using libraries, we're using frameworks, we're using all sorts of stuff, and we're using it, well, a lot, right? But what is the solution? The solution is three kind of things. It's not only having the right scanners tooling in place. It is three things. We need to take care of a lot of things. So we need to have our mindset in the right, well, in the right way. We need to make sure that our team culture is there, our process is adapted, and we do have the correct tooling to help us with it. Because our developers are not security experts. And if we need to develop by the speed of light, we also bring in a few problems. And because you probably do not have tools that help you with finding bugs, like find bugs or with code styling or whatever, we need these tools. But more important, we need to focus on team culture first. If we look at team culture, we have a lot of different people in our companies, in our teams. Developers, security members, operations guys and girls, and management people. And they all have a different focus because as a developer, you want to create new features. You want to be there. You want to probably there as a product owner up your ass that wants you to deliver fast. And you want to do that fast. You want to do interesting techie stuff, right? If we're looking at security people, they don't care if it works. They just want to make sure that it's secure. That if it doesn't work, you do not ship it to production, and we're fine because our ultimate goal as security people, or the ultimate goal for security people, is basically that client data is not compromised. Operations, if we took a look into the traditional way of operations, they want to have simple deployments. They wanted to auto-skill things. They want it to be predictable and stable, right? They wanted their availability to be up, because if it's not available, they have to grab in. And if it doesn't work, it will not go to production, and they're fine with that. And management, well, they want you to deliver faster than the competition. And most of all, they want it to be profitable. They want to make sure they make money out of it. So if we can get this team culture a bit more aligned and make sure that we as developers think more of security and operations and the other way around, so we get this security part inside our development pipeline and make sure that it works not only as a gatekeeper in the end and only as the person that you say, oh, damn, I cannot go to production again because this person says it's not safe. But if we help each other a little bit, we might get things done better and safer. And then we get that process part, because nobody generally wants to change, right? Maybe we say we want to change, but in general, nobody wants to change. If it works, well, I've been doing this for 25 years. You know these kind of sentences, right? And the best way to make sure that security is adapted to your team is make sure that your process doesn't need to be adapted, but you can integrate this as part of your current process. So you maybe have to do a slight change, like push a button, but that is okay. But if you do need to do all these kind of manual tests again, you will not do that. Maybe you will do that like 1 time, 2 times, 3 weeks, and then you go back to normal because people put pressure on it. So make sure that your process is in line, or the new thing you want to do is in line with your current process, and see how you can fit that current process. And then we need the tooling. We need tooling to help you with checking, for instance, in this case, your dependencies. And now we're talking about dependencies, but it's in all sorts of things, like maybe even static code analysis. If we can automate a lot of these things or make them work for you, it's not a big deal to be security minded. I mean, you run unit tests, right? And you run them hopefully automatically and not one by one manually. I hope you, for instance, for your front end, you have some sort of test that your main flow will be tested every time you want to go to production, that you only have to adapt to what you changed. Why not for security the same way? And that's why we say we need to develop some sort of DevSecOps pipeline. For instance, while you're coding, why not have things in place that can scan your stuff like our product can do, but in this, scan your stuff for dependencies, if your dependencies are vulnerable or not. I will show you a little bit of this just to give you an impression on how this works. If I have this Java application over here, right? And I have my stuff in place, but it can be any other scanner. It doesn't matter. Oh, it does. It will analyze my dependencies, and it will cross-reference to our database, and it will see which vulnerabilities are in there, and it gives you information, and not only information that says it's wrong. No, I would love to have information that says, what can I do to help this? What do I need to do? How can I remediate this? So for simple things, well, this kind of thing I cannot find in, but if we have a program like this, you can see that it gives, in some cases, a remediation advice. Instead of using this library, using the 0.11, and you're done with this vulnerability. That would be great during development, because if I can get this stuff within development and I know that it's not getting in there, and again, I don't care if you use my stuff or my company stuff or other stuff, and you do not need to use only my stuff or only a scanning tool for dependency, but also like static analysis, make sure that you have unit tests, make sure that, for instance, when you push something to production, you have your master branch checked for secrets, for instance. So make sure that's in every step of your pipeline, your coding, but also every scan your repository and make sure that it can fix automatically. make sure that, for instance, every single branch or every single branch is tested, but also every single pull request. If you can fix that delta before it goes into production, you're great, right? And of course, in the meantime, from coding to getting into master, getting into your CI, and at that point, a new vulnerability can be disclosed. So you still need that gatekeeper. So in your CI pipeline, you still need some sort of automatic testing for vulnerabilities, but also for other kinds of things. But these security things need to be in place. And then we have production. If you're in production, we can take a snapshot of your dependencies and your code. We will not take a snapshot of your code, but you can do that. And you can scan that on a daily basis. That's the same thing we do with your dependencies. We scan them on a daily basis, and we inform you if there are alerts on that. But again, what I would say is that we have to shift security left. We have to make sure that you do not only work with it as a gatekeeper before you go into production, but in every single stage of development. Everything I showed you from Retooling is free, so you feel free to use it, but it was just to give you an example on what to do and what happens when you do not scan your stuff, right? Actually, this is kind of the end of my presentation. I think I've got a few minutes left. If you have any questions and you're not feeling like want to ask it right now to Oleg, or what, just ping me on @BrianVerm, or well, in the virtual JUG Slack. I'm now one of the admins, so you can reach me over there. If you want to know more about AppSec in general, so being a developer that wants to be a bit more security minded, go to TheSecureDeveloper.com, because we have some great sessions which are specifically on security over there. I think tomorrow there's something on Angular security on, so if you're into that or you have some cross references with that, because nowadays we're all full stack, right? I would say sign up for it, and it's all free. So I will close my slideshow now, and I will go back to my normal screen. Then I can stop sharing. All right. And I hope that Oleg didn't fall asleep yet.
I haven't. It was very eye-opening, actually, as the presentation. I enjoyed the demos. Thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for the time. There were a couple of people saying thanks in the YouTube chat. Just for those people we do not monitor, like I keep an eye on it, but like I don't monitor it very precisely. So if you would like to ask questions, move to the Slack channel, please. But luckily there are no questions there. Right. Surprisingly, there was.
I see somebody said that it surprised him that .. in a zip file works. Well, if you create a zip file in not such a normal way, it is possible, as you can see, and I can even show you some Java code that can create such a zip file. But that would bring me on the red team, and I'm more of a blue team kind of player. So, but yeah, it's possible.
Right. You just share the hypothetical advice how to make your cloud competitors spend more money on.
No, well, you have to basically think a bit like what can they do to me to make sure that they don't do it to you. They say sometimes offense is the best defense, but if you think like them, let's make it a them and us game, then you can protect yourself, or you can see how important it is. That's my most important question, most important point over here.
Yeah. As they say, to catch a bus, you have to think as like a bus. Though, to paraphrase the Yan T. Kim question about the vulnerabilities in the content type headers and SQL injections and the same like zip file vulnerability, do you think we will reasonably get to the point where such kind of not basic but typical vulnerabilities will be a thing of the past, right?
I hope so, but the point is, if you look, say, for instance, at the old OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, we'll see every year, every single year, you see that the easy things, or the easy things like the general things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and all these kinds of things are still in the top 10. So we still need to deal with it because people make mistakes, and that's no biggie that people make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but they are still part of that deal. And I don't think we will end up anywhere soon unless we get a little bit more security minded in general. And of course, we need to do pair programming and that kind of review things. That's of course one thing, but the mindset in general is important. And I hope at some point we'll get there, but unfortunately, I don't think it will be anywhere soon.
Right. That's a realistic answer. A little bit.
Yeah. I hope so. I mean, we had a session from one of the Java champions, Jim Manico, on, and it's still this year. SQL injection is still in the top 10, and I was also surprised by it. And cross-site scripting is still, because, well, it's still there, and we still have to work with new programmers and new youngsters that need to be security minded as well. And the next question is, do you teach this in school or not? Maybe there we have to start there.
Right. But do you think the ecosystem will catch up, like, eventually? Because, like, to avoid SQL injections, you have to use a library that handles SQL for you, right?
Yeah.
Then they just, like, to avoid any chance of passing unsanitized input to your SQL engine. Oh, that's my like noob take on it, right?
I completely agree. You should not use you should not implement everything yourself, because, well, then you basically make the rookie mistakes. But you see that if you use libraries like this, you must be aware that also these libraries can have small nitty problems. And although, for instance, these headers were enormous, but if somebody just takes a couple of days off and makes it his life's work and publishes it on the internet, we still have a breach. So we have to be like, it's something, almost a kind of war. If you're getting bigger, I need to get bigger, you know?
Yeah, it's a game of who puts more resources into this. Right. So we have one question from Niraj Kumar in the YouTube chat. Does the tool, I assume the Snyk tool, scan all OWASP vulnerabilities, or can you maybe give like a 30-second pitch what it does?
The 30-second pitch, we do more than the OWASP, or say the CVE database is more or less the common vulnerabilities and exploits database. We have more because we have our own security team that does research on it. That's the short pitch. But I do not want to get that big into the product because I want to focus on the mindset in this case.
Right. Excellent. Can you maybe give an advice on the best resources to obtain that security-oriented mindset? Any books, any, I don't know, websites, resources?
Well, first of all, I would subscribe to that SecureDeveloper thing. It's basically some similar kind of virtual thing as the VJUG, and you can ask questions over there. And all our speakers over there are also in the Slack. So we've got security experts over there. There are a lot of books. I know I personally love the Java Ironclad, or what is it, from Jim Manico, which is a good one. But there are so many good security speakers and security writers. Well, I can create a list of it, but I would start with that thing and just go into your desk and, just like now, see sessions about certain topics that may open your eyes or not.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Awesome, man.
We don't have any more questions, so we will stop here. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Brian on Twitter or find him on the Virtual JUG Slack. Now he will definitely be on the Virtual JUG Slack because Brian is a part of the Virtual JUG team. Hooray, once again. So yeah, many thanks. It's been a wonderful session, very educational. I personally enjoyed it. I hope other people enjoyed it as well. So if you're watching Virtual JUG on YouTube as a replay, please come to the Slack channel and join the community. We have a next session lined up somewhere in the late August. Brian, do you have a word about what that would be?
Yeah, it's I think it's August 27, and it's a session about Kubernetes and well, the 12 factor standards. So it's about it's given by a close friend of mine, Anna Maria Mihalcanu from Romania, IBM Romania. She's a great speaker. I have met her a couple of times, and she will have some great insights on Kubernetes in that case. I think it's already up on the meetup, so you can see the abstract over there and check it out. And I hope to see you there. I will be on OLEX side at that point and hosting the show instead of talking.
Right. So save the date. It's late August. Anna will be there. Brian will be there. If you watch us on YouTube, click that subscribe button. I can't believe I'm saying those things, but you will get a notification about that session, or join the meetup.com, or just hang out in our Slack and we'll manually notify you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Until the next time. Bye.
Bye.